you started getting into this and started uncovering things. And there's a lot of things that we're all still, I mean, most people kind of heard about like Uncle Nearest and all these other kind of things too, but kind of talk about, it was Buffalo Trace where you first got started and started really uncovering things, or are there other pieces?
So Buffalo Trace, I'll be honest, was the first distillery that allowed me to come into their archives. So, but of course, once I really didn't know, I'll be honest, I'm a historian. I really didn't know about Uncle Nearest. I didn't know about Jack Daniels. I didn't know that. And then when I began to work at Buffalo Trace, and then of course, then I'm like, well, let me just do a little Google search. And then I start reading all these other things. And I'm like, hold on, Kentucky's got to have their Uncle Nearest. And so that's where I'm at now. Like, I've got to find this story. I know that it's there. How it's documented, I don't know, but I'm trying to figure that out.
Mm-hmm. So when you're going through Buffalo Trace, I kind of want to talk about what you found and some of the significance of your findings as well, of the people and everything like that. So kind of talk us through that.
Buffalo Trace, definitely. We know the Johnson family, Freddie Johnson.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so definitely their stories were in there. His grandfather's stories were in there. And just the role of Blanton and bringing in Freddie Johnson. But, I also saw, like I said, that bourbon is truly a lens where you get to look at history. You get to see where African Americans first started off as like laborers. They weren't even allowed to be in the actual bourbon house or in the bourbon, to make the barrels and things like that. They were fixing the fences at Buffalo Trace, maintaining the yard, things like that. And then as you see history transition, as you see as society transitions, the next thing you know, now they're in the bottling. And so it's truly a lens of history and how our country has moved or progressed or not in racial relationships.
Mm-hmm. So you kind of see that gradual movement of just working on fences to actually being a part of the distillery process.
Yeah, I know there has to be a more highlight of what African Americans have done in the bourbon industry. But I do think Buffalo Trace and other companies are working hard or working at some rate to make sure that these stories are being told.
And I think there's also a difficulty in finding it as well, because, just talk about what it is that did distillers just not keep records?
It's documented. History is documented thing. History. So one of the great things about being an African American historian who studies African American history is that I get to sit down with people and have oral histories. Because oftentimes when we talk about African American history, a Native American, Indigenous, women's history, even sometimes they weren't documented. Because when you're considered a periphery of the society, it's not, why document your history? And so, but because of that, I get to go out and interview people whose father's father was this, and they have a newspaper clipping or they have a pay stub, and I get to and to me, that's the heart, that's the fruit of getting to be a historian. You know what I mean? The archives are cool, and what top down is what we call it in history. Top down history is cool, but I get to sit on people's couch and they offer me sweet tea or good tequila. I get to do that. And I think after Buffalo Trace, what Buffalo Trace did for me, maybe I didn't find out a whole lot or whatever, because also, Buffalo Trace, not even Buffalo Trace, companies that want you to see what they want you to see. But what happens is that, hey, now my name's in a newspaper article. Now you saw me on TV. You heard me on a podcast. And next thing I know, you're emailing me and you're reaching out to me and you're asking to tell your family story to me. And you're asking for me to come to your church and interview people. And I can't remember which one. I've been to so many distilleries. I went to a distillery for an African American history project. And at the end, those who worked the line were coming up and they had been working the line for 30 years and wanted me to record their story.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So that is the part that keeps me like, okay, I love this.